Well, good morning, everyone. How y'all doing today? If you're doing good, then I'm glad to hear it. I'm going to do this video about something as simple as being a philosopher or choosing the life of a philosopher. It's something that I want to start off by saying that over the last couple of years I've been really trying to train my brain to see things. I should say I've been untraining my brain to see things the way that I've been taught. And in that process, I start to see things differently. And many of the things that I observe in daily life, I see as archetypes. And I remember reading one time that at some point in your journey, if you seek, hard enough, you begin to see everything in archetypes, because everything is a repeating pattern of cycles that we see over and over. The stories that take place. It's like when someone sees a movie and they say, oh, that's an old played out plot. Realize all movies are the same plot. There are very few storylines. There's the hero, There's all these different components to the story that we learned about in school. But all the stories are archetypes for our lives. All of them. Even the strangest movies tend to have, if they have any sort of plot whatsoever, fit a storyline of our history, or something that we, as humans, endure. And as I see things in archetypes, I start to ask myself, what is the role of, say, myself in this world? And I picture myself, and this is how this is the visual I've been getting, or the metaphor is, everyone is falling through space, and everyone on Earth, let's say, this is just a picture I have in my head. We're all falling through empty space, and there are little objects and ideas and things that we can gather along the way, that we can grab and we can hang on to for a while, or we can let go and grab onto something else, but we can never hold on to everything at once. Likewise, as we're falling, we're bumping into one another. We intermingle. We have some time together where we are on the same wavelength in the same area, and we move on and meet with other people. We may have people we've completely related to, and then 5 years later we don't relate to at all, and that's part of life, and that's okay. Respecting the alternate views and understanding this is what philosophy is. It's looking at all the aspects of a situation without a predisposition or trying to draw conclusions based on either half evidence or especially preconceived notions, or something we hold that we think is true, and we don't want that to be ruined by some type of philosophy, so we say, oh, you're just overthinking it. The life of a philosopher seems to be one that never attaches to anything, is kind of the point that I'm getting at. And I look around at the people around me, and I see them, one person gets really into art, and that's their project. They draw, and they spend a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, their whole life drawing pictures. And I guess an example was, I was watching a show the other night about an artist who, he's been drawing the same style of art for 40, 50 years, and it's his passion. And I think, on one hand, a person, from my view, is locked into this, one thing. But at the same time, I envy them for that passion, for that drive to keep at it. For me, I find myself going from, an extreme passion to another extreme passion, and that's what I found myself to be, what they call a multi-potentialite, or, the multitasker, the person, not a multitasker, I guess I'm a multi-interest person who has a lot of different things in life that I'm into, but never letting any one thing drive me too far, because if it does, I tend to get wrapped up in it, and it becomes all-consuming, or obsessed about it, so I step back. My brother has this too, and I was reading something about his horoscope, or his birth date the other day, and it was saying how you'll grab onto an idea and you will obsess, and that's all that matters in the world, and everybody else better be into it too. And that was exactly how my brother was, and that's probably why I try not to do that, because I saw him, when he was into the Grateful Dead, that's all that mattered. When he was into Phish, that was all that mattered. Whatever band he was into, that was all that mattered. And when he was into a hobby, he wanted me to play golf with him, he wants me to play frisbee golf with him, but it's always what he's into. And it's not a narcissism, it's an obsession with what he's into that he wants to share, and I understand that now. After these years of being told, like, oh, well, that's a narcissistic attitude, I realize it's not at all. That it's a passionate attitude that my brother has, and that I have too. And we both skip from thing to thing to thing. So I can kind of relate by watching him and observing him when he's really into something. Because when I'm into something, I want to come and show everybody. I want to tell everybody about it. Hey, this is what I discovered. This is what I'm into. What do you think about this? Or if I have a new idea about, I guess what they say, the devil's advocate, when you're always bringing up the opposite in a situation, like always questioning, like, well, is that true? And I do that even if it's something that I believe. If I'm in a discussion with people and I'm totally in agreement, I will be the one to bring in the well, but maybe it's not true. And then either get attacked or, find people who are willing to think it through. But philosophers are kind of lonely people because of your own philosophy. You can feed off of the old philosophies, and if you are a philosopher and you consider yourself a philosopher, it's not a bad word, and it's surely not a teacher, or it has nothing to do with school. Okay, put it this way: you cannot go to school to be a philosopher. That's just not something that is even. You can go to school to understand ancient philosophies or to understand other philosophers before you, but philosophy is a matter of the love of wisdom. It's the love of knowledge. It's just absorbing and understanding everything. There's no class for philosophy because philosophy includes science, religion, mathematics, all of it. You cannot exclude anything in your studies if you're a philosopher. You cannot look at one side of any story without looking at the other and call yourself a philosopher. And by saying that, that sounds arrogant. Being a philosopher is kind of a bad word. It's not something that a lot of people are proud of, because to society, the philosopher is the guy who just sits around and thinks all the time. But think of it this way. The philosopher, along with the activist, if you will, the thinker and the doer, are intertwined. They are what make this discoveries work. The philosopher has an idea, just like the theorist and the scientist. The one theoretician has an idea, and this scientist puts it to work to see if it works. Well, the philosopher has these ideas about life, and then we observe others to see if that's really a truth within it. And so, all of this that I've said, of course, hasn't brought about any. I haven't really said anything. This whole video, I've been talking about philosophy and haven't really said anything, and that's kind of the root of philosophy. Even questioning philosophy and what it is. I do have a love of wisdom, but I also have a love of existence. I have a love of living and a love of life, a love of people, family. And if you get too wrapped up in your studies, then you might neglect that side that you have now, such as your kids growing up. And sometimes people want to escape, and go travel the world, but really we're trying to get away from ourselves. We're trying to think our way out of a problem. Or maybe the house is dirty and it makes us feel like if we just cleaned it up, everything would be fine. But really that clear-headedness is something that is completely internal. It has nothing to do with the external world. You cannot escape the idea that your mind wants to think about life. So if you have a thought, any thought, embrace it. See what it is. Ask yourself about it. Because if you try to push thoughts out of your head or try to ignore things that you don't understand, it's just going to serve to confuse you, and those things will keep coming back to haunt you and repeating. So they say everything's electric, everything is magnetic. People attract and repel ideas and each other, things, feelings, and it seems like the more we resist something, the more it comes to us. So that's what I've observed, and I find that understanding the world around us is a very rewarding thing. There will always be somebody who understands it better. And there will always be people who don't want to understand it at all. So falling somewhere in the middle is really important. Never let yourself get carried away with your thoughts, thinking that they're the correct ones. This is how things like flat earth theory becomes, prominent. Arguing with a guy earlier who was saying that, He was using the fallacy that just because everybody has listened to what they've been told doesn't mean that the earth is round. He said, no, it's more than that. This is one of those simple ideas that can wrap a person up into something that's just a big waste of their time. Asking yourself, if you're really using your time on these theories or ideas, how are they serving you? And are they helping you? And are they helping society in any way? And I find that much of the things that we spend time on don't really have any end in sight. There's no real recourse or purpose to them. There's nothing you can do to prove many of the things that people say. In other words, rather than having a daily philosophy and understanding of the world that we live in now, we get wrapped up in what so-and-so did in the past, or what a corrupt government did, or which war was started by who, or what was a false flag or conspiracy. And it seems like people are hiding philosophy behind a mask of distrust. It's a complicated world, and we can readily observe that it's easy to get angry at what's around us, but cooler heads always prevail, and we know that. So just remain skeptical, but remain open, and be fair to yourself and others, and hopefully we all can live a decent life, because as I think Edison said, time is our only real our only real money, our only real income is time, and how we spend it is totally up to us. It's the only thing we own is our time. So with that, I better go, because my time